My name is Lila Thomas, and I am 37 years old. I live in Lakeview Hills, where life is mostly peaceful, with the gentle whispers of rippling lakes and rustling trees. For a long time, I had settled into a routine that felt stable enough. I worked as a manufacturing engineer for a fishing company, dedicating myself to the job with great passion. Over 5 years, I had immersed myself in the world of packaging line implementation, helping the factory run smoothly. I thought my hard work would eventually lead me up the ladder, bringing me success and recognition. However, the higher I aimed, the more obstacles I encountered. There was one person who seemed to relish in throwing those obstacles in my path, my manager. I called him Douchehead Manager, but that was merely for convenience. I could have come up with many other names that accurately depicted how he made me feel. There was something inexplicable about the way he loomed over my successes, critiquing my ideas while funneling my innovation to others, making it their own. I felt like a ghost in the office, a presence easily ignored by my own boss. Despite the long hours and countless energy drinks it took to keep up, I remained determined, convinced that my tenacity would pay off in the end. Then came a day that completely shattered my world. It was the first of the month, and I arrived at work eager to tackle a line teardown that was long overdue. The day started like any other until I began hearing whispers. Conversations that died as I approached the break room, furtive glances cast toward the human resources office. I paused mid-wrench as I caught sight of one of my colleagues from accounting, tears streaming down her face as she left with a cardboard box full of her belongings. I felt my heart race. I threw myself into my work, unwilling to entertain the idea that anyone else would join her. After all, I was dedicated. I had proven my worth time and again. But when I heard my name being called over the intercom, something deep inside me twisted in despair. It was a sinking feeling, and no amount of denial could turn it around. As I walked into the HR office, I clutched onto my optimism for dear life. Yet, what awaited me felt like the slowest swan dive into oblivion. Sitting across from the HR representative, I was met with the dreaded position elimination, a phrase that would echo in my mind long after that meeting. I was informed without warning that my role had been eliminated. I was being let go after 4 years and 11 months. The emptiness of their words crashed over me like a tidal wave. How could this happen? I had never received a bad review. No one had told me to improve anything. I was being told that my hard work and dedication equated to nothing more than an employee number and a line on a bottomless budget sheet. I had worked countless hours, sacrificed weekends, and poured my sweat into that place only to be tossed aside like a piece of trash. I was escorted back to my desk to collect my belongings, my heart in tatters. I had heard all the reasoning, corporate restructuring, balancing the company sheets, but all I could concentrate on was the raw sense of betrayal coiling around my insides like a snake. The worst part? My birthday was the next day. As the day wore on, countless others were called into the HR office, and I learned that this was not an isolated incident. People were being let go across departments like leaves falling from trees in autumn. My best friends at work were being taken away one by one, and not without a sense of betrayal. As we mourned together, spirits dampened not just by the loss of our jobs, but by the heavy sense of injustice, we found out about the corporation's shady practices. The conglomerate that owned the fishing company was preparing to sell it. We had become collateral damage in a twisted game of numbers and profits. I was left completely devastated, trying to wrap my head around why I had been put on the chopping block when there were others who were clearly more expendable. There were others who would have welcomed the chance to leave, yet, somehow, I had been targeted. After one day of painfully contemplating my options, drowning my sorrows with my friends while celebrating my birthday, I forced myself to pick up the shattered pieces of my life. I spent the next month combing through job listings, staring at screens filled with potential opportunities that felt like distant possibilities. The sting of rejection from the fishing company was hard to swallow, but I kept trying. Finally, after weeks of searching, I landed a job that brought me genuine happiness, a position where my expertise was valued and my contributions appreciated. I had found a workplace that felt more like a family than a detached corporate machine. It was a breath of fresh air. Then, about 6 months into my new job, the day arrived that would change everything. I was called into the office of the plant director, a man I had grown to respect and admire during my time there. The office was only a short walk from my cubicle, and I strolled in confidently, thankful for every moment I had regained since my previous job. I greeted him with a friendly smile, and he returned it with a serious expression as he raised a piece of paper. "Lila, I have a resume for the plant manager position," he began. "You used to work at that fishing place, didn't you?" My heart skipped a beat as he continued speaking. I managed to respond, "Yes, I did." I felt a pang of anxiety as he asked about my former manager. I grinned and said, "Douchehead manager was my boss, yes." The plant director's eyes narrowed as he leaned back in his chair, setting the paper down on the table. How was he to work with? I shrugged and replied, "Well, he was an okay person, but he was a really great bus driver, if you get what I mean." The director chuckled, a sound that washed over me like a warm wave. Then came the moment I had not prepared for. The director picked up Douchehead's resume and, without hesitation, ripped it in half before tossing it in a wastebasket. "That is all I needed to know," he smiled. I felt my heart leaping for joy. That was my retaliation unfolding right in front of me. Douchehead manager had been unemployed since the day I had been let go, and despite the pain and frustration, fate had found a way to deliver justice. I walked out of that office with my head held high. My stomach churned in delight as a sense of poetic justice washed over me. I left the building that day buoyed with some sort of revenge, an unintentional retribution that tasted far sweeter than I could have imagined. In the following months, I settled into my new role. I formed bonds with my colleagues, and for every productive day, I relished in the peace of knowing that my dedication was making a difference. No longer was I amidst the chaos of the fishing company. Instead, I was part of a team that appreciated my input and encouraged me to grow, both professionally and personally. I even began to mentor new hires, sharing my journey and the obstacles I had faced. Life in Lakeview Hills became my sanctuary again. I spent more time walking by the lakeside, delighting in the wonders around me rather than the stresses of impending deadlines. I had learned that sometimes, things fall apart before they can fall into place. As summer turned to fall, I reflected on how far I had come since that fateful first of the month. Justice may not always be served in the way we wish, yet it sometimes finds a way to reveal itself in unexpected forms, reminding us that we are not defined by our setbacks, but by how we rise from them. One crisp autumn day, as I strolled along the lake with leaves crunching beneath my feet, I spotted a familiar face across the path. It was one of my former colleagues from that fishing place, and she looked as radiant as ever. We exchanged pleasantries, and I was happy to learn that she too had found success, and in a similar way, she had come to terms with her past. It was a reminder that the web of our experiences connects us, and even in moments of loss, we can discover new beginnings. Looking back, I thought of Douchehead manager. As much as I was relieved he was no longer my manager, I felt a sense of liberation that I had taken back my power the moment I chose to rise again. Life has a way of surprising us, and I had every intention of living my life unapologetically moving forward, ready to embrace whatever came next.